Let's talk about Max. So P4 in the end, you know, started on pole, held it for as long as he possibly could in the lead of the race. Eventually, he was always going to get overtaken by the McLarens. It was a kind of inevitability. The race pace of the McLarens was so it was really good. Had a good old scrap with Lando as we're starting to get a little bit more familiar with, and yeah, then lost out to Russell in the VSC. I mean, how would you rate Verstappen's performance today? It wasn't anything blinding, but it was as solid as you could possibly get, probably.
I think he had a solid race, but I'm going to caveat my opinions here with just to tell you a little story of how my race panned out. Oscar Piastri gets to 8 tenths of a second behind Max Verstappen. I get a big fuzzy screen on my TV, and then lots of swearing and lots of different devices connecting to different services, and then eventually it reconnects, and Oscar Piastri is 9 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. So I've kind of caught up with little bits of it after the race. I've seen that basically Max was his usual staunch defender, and potentially Oscar losing out quite a lot on time initially, but then Lando losing more time, and you do think that maybe if the start had gone slightly differently, then yeah, it could have been It could have been a dominant win for Lando, and all of a sudden this whole situation is changing. But he was never going to keep those McLarens behind him, so you think it's Max doing Max things again, just trying as hard as possible to keep in these positions, desperate for a podium. But in the end, his aggressive defense has probably lost him a podium. Let's be honest, because if he hadn't have lost so much time scrapping with the McLarens, who realistically were always going to pass him, when the VSC comes out and George Russell makes his pit stop and Mercedes blunder it, Max Verstappen comes out ahead of George Russell, probably 3 or 4 seconds up the road, and we don't really have this conversation. So you could maybe say that he did this a lot last year. I found that he was so kind of spooked by this potential Lando Norris championship fight that never really existed that he would do anything to disrupt Lando Norris's races and McLaren's races, and as a result, that's what brought Ferrari back into the championship fight. He would sacrifice his race just to stop someone else's. And that's what he was doing today to a slightly lesser extent, which is probably the last thing I think Max Verstappen needs to add to his arsenal. A bit more big picture stuff and a bit more kind of gentlemanly conduct in certain situations, because he's at war when he's on the racetrack, which is what makes him so great. He's at 99% all of the time, and then when he gets angry, he gets that 100%, and he's just unbeatable. Most other drivers are that 90-95%, and then occasionally you'll see them reaching peaks that he is at all the time, which is a phenomenal trait. But I just feel like on occasion he doesn't think big picture. He doesn't think, well, what is this going to mean for the championship? And really, is what I'm doing fair as well? It seems a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to sound like sour grapes because it's not, but I just feel sometimes he just goes a little far beyond that line still. But you cannot deny that today was probably a 99% race, not a 100% race, but a little more. He's probably lost a couple of points he could have gained, but I guarantee he'll gain 50 points this year that he would never have any chance of earning in other scenarios. So yeah, not his absolute best race, but still strong performance.